Marcus, first, good morning, and secondly, fantastically timing that you are on, because if Sean had been on, who is normally sitting in that seat there, after one of the great games of the season, the 4-3 for his beloved Geordies, we would have had 59 minutes of Harvey Barnes worship.
Well, I think we will discuss Harvey Barnes and that game in particular, because it did, as I mentioned, have just about everything. Mention of Sean, based on your conversation last week, he's away having a corporate Easter, is he? Because he's been hanging around in most of the corporate boxes over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, he'll be having sponsored chocolate eggs. I imagine he's still sort of down the big market somewhere, just sort of celebrating, because that was, I was watching it yesterday and it was just on the TV, and the atmosphere was just fantastic, and then just sort of, hearing the sort of the coverage afterwards on the radio, just sort of listening in. It was just one of those games that you just want to savour, and I know we're going to discuss it later, but Harvey Barnes, the pictures all over the front page of him celebrating the injuries that he's been through. He's such an honest pro. Obviously he comes from sort of good goal scoring lineage with his dad. He's just and those goals as well. His dad was more of a poacher, and he was just, those goals from range as well. So it's what the game's all about. Look, great day of football, 29 goals, some of them special, Cullen as well as Barnes, loads of controversy. So loads to talk about.
We will get through as many of those matches as possible. And actually, talking of great games, Nicky Summerby's going to join us in the second hour of the programme, and he played a key role in one of the greatest matches I've ever had the fortune to cover. That was the 1998 playoff final at Wembley. Remember Charlton against Sunderland? He actually put Sunderland 4-3 up in extra time.
99th minute.
Oh, extraordinary stuff. Took one of the penalties as well. So I think we'll have to nudge him to recall some of those great moments. One of the great games at Wembley, I would say, Henry.
Yeah, the playoffs have been brilliant, and I think he took the first penalty as well for Sunderland, so showed a bit of steel. Yeah,
OK, so we'll hear from him. We'll hear from Nigel Winterburn, who incredibly only won 2 England caps, and we'll talk more about England later. But obviously at the moment there's a bit of an issue with the left-back position, especially if Nigel was in his pomp right now, well, he'd be chomping at the bit. So we'll hear from both of those. In terms of what's grabbed your attention, Henry, on the back pages today, I think you're going to start with a story entitled Bottle Jobs. And of course that is a nod to what Gary Neville said recently with regards to Chelsea, and yesterday they could only draw 2-2 at home to Burnley, who are down to 10 men. And Maurizio Pochettino, who is normally very, very defensive and understanding towards his players, was not on this occasion. What do you read into all of that?
It sounds like he's getting a bit frustrated with them. He was, Cole Palmer I thought was terrific, took his goals well. Panenka penalty. It's nerveless for someone so young. But the Mail on Sunday, Bottle Jobs, as you say, echoing Gary Neville's, what was it, £1 billion blue bottle jobs. Now even Pochettino sticks boot into Chelsea flops after draw with 10-man Burnley. And the Sunday Times as well, the headline is Chelsea's jaded fans can hardly bother to cheer. And this is, Kieran Gill's piece in the Mail on Sundays is talking about Pochettino accused Chelsea of lacking the head and heart required to win a Premier League match as they blew 2 leads against the 10 men of Burnley. And this is a consistent issue with Chelsea at the moment, on and off the pitch. You can have a look in the boardroom as well as the dressing room. Where the real leaders of Chelsea, who's actually providing the direction? There'll always be question marks against Pochettino because of his Spurs connections. You talk to Chelsea fans, as I'm sure you do, and they mention Spurs within about 3 seconds of debating Pochettino. But you can't blame him for some of the performances out there, and you can't blame him for this sort of imbalanced squad that he's got, not simply in the sort of overweighted or underweighted in certain positions and the injury problems that they've had, but the lack of leaders. The club really have to buy characters. It's all very well buying young kids, and some of them, like Palmer, clearly, lead with their feet and they've been fantastic. But they do need some experienced heads in that dressing room, some leaders.
The thing that strikes me as well, Henry, OK, Pochettino is not popular. He's got his Tottenham connections. How many managers are you going to go through? At what stage do you think, OK, we've got to stick with somebody? Whether Pochettino actually wants to stay at the club is another matter, but they've been through a fair few managerial changes since the takeover. And I remember at the start of that takeover, Todd Boehly was sort of indicating that he wanted stability in terms of who was going to actually run the club on the pitch.
Pochettino will surely want to stay. I mean, Chelsea are an elite club. They've got some good players in there, young players, but they just need a lot of that squad trimming. They need certain sort of investment. They still need a centre forward. I mean, Jackson's sort of done well, but often some of the best work he does is sort of, drifting in slightly from wider positions. I mean, he works so hard. But when you've got a central midfield that costs £250 million, you're expecting one of them a world champion. You're expecting a little bit more from them. And then because of FFP, there's the debate about Conor Gallagher's future. I mean, Gallagher's, maybe at the very elite top level, there are one or two limitations in his game, but in terms of heart, you have to be holding on to players like that. So again, this whole issue of leadership with Chelsea is just rampant there.
Now, in the Telegraph, nice little headline: Arsenal have got it easy. This is a quote from Pep Guardiola ahead of the match this afternoon. What is he referring to there?
Yeah, it's a piece by James Dunker, who is the Telegraph's Manchester man, very well connected. He was obviously at Pep's press conferences. And just to sort of flesh it out, headlines obviously, and it's echoed in other newspapers, the Arsenal have got it easy, but just to sort of flesh Pep's quote out, he says the biggest success of this club, i.e. City, organisation, is that many years still we are there, i.e. at the top. People cannot imagine how difficult it is. So when he's talking about Arsenal have got it easy, I think he's as much talking about the fact that City are doing it, year after year. Okay, we can talk about the money, we can talk about the strength of their lawyers, and they've still got the 115 breaches to address, which they deny. That will come at some point in the next sort of decade or two, judging by the way that the Premier League seems to be addressing it. But the point he makes is a good one. He says to fight for one title that you haven't won for many years is, wow, it is easy. But now being here for many, many years and still being there is wow. So the fact that City are doing it year in, year out, to keep that hunger for the coach, for everyone at the club, for the players as well, is a remarkable tribute to them.
We'll talk in a moment about another headline, Euro terror alert in the Sun on Sunday. But Chris from Chelsea's been in touch, says, blimey, not even 10 minutes into the show, and Henry is defending Poch. What has he got over the media to constantly be defended when he does not deserve it? He needs to go. It's his job to motivate these players, and he's not.
This thing about players needing to be motivated, if you are well paid, if you are playing for a club of Chelsea's stature, if you are playing for these fans who travel home and away, who sacrifice everything, mortgages, marriages, to actually sort of be there and support that team, you shouldn't need motivating by a manager as you go out there. I think one or two players do need to look at it themselves in the mirror. Where I do agree is that I think Pochettino could possibly, he'll pride himself and his coaching staff on making good players better. We saw that with Tottenham, if I can mention them in a Chelsea context. We saw them in that run to the Champions League final. The bond that he built, he made good players better. We saw the performances of Dyer and Dele Alli and in that run. He is a good coach. He needs to do more at Cobham. He clearly needs to sort of coach them more. But, there is an issue there which is out with his office.
Eric Ten Hag also last night saying that Manchester United didn't show the pride and the determination to match Brentford. So there's a bit of a theme there. We'll talk about that Euro terror alert in a moment as well. You're listening to the Sunday edition on talkSPORT with Marcus Buckland and Henry Winter.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.